In this video, you'll learn about 4 fundamental information security principles that are required knowledge for any information security professional. These principles are least privilege, separation of duties, defense in depth, and security through obscurity. The first of these principles, least privilege, states that individuals should have the smallest set of privileges necessary to do their jobs. The enemy of least privilege is something known as authorization creep. Authorization creep occurs when an individual moves through a variety of jobs or roles within an organization and accumulates permissions. This commonly occurs because it's always seen as critical to provide an individual with the new permissions necessary to perform a new job, but it is often not seen as important a task to remove the permissions associated with their old job because they are not preventing business from being completed. The end result of authorization creep is that an individual may wind up with a much wider set of permissions than was ever intended. The second principle, separation of duties, states that you should divide the key responsibilities for critical functions among 2 or more individuals. One well-known example of separation of duties is launching a nuclear missile. This is often seen in movies and television. In a nuclear missile launch silo, 2 separate missile launch officers must simultaneously turn their keys in order to launch a missile. The keys are located far enough apart that one individual cannot possibly reach both of them to turn them at the same time. Other, more mundane examples from the world of accounting include separating the privileges associated with printing and signing checks, and also separating the ability to create a new vendor in the accounting system and approve invoices for that vendor. This last scenario prevents a single individual from creating a false vendor, such as a friend or relative, and then approving an invoice paying that individual. All of these examples of separation of duties are designed to create scenarios that require collusion among more than one individual to defeat. It is often much more difficult to convince someone else to go along with you in a criminal act than it is to commit one on your own. So separation of duties provides a very important defense against internal attacks. The third principle, defense in depth, is borrowed from military strategy. It consists of building layers of defense that compensate for the potential failure of each other. On the battlefield, the military builds several strong lines of defense rather than having one single strong line of defense. Therefore, if one defense fails, the other defenses are still protecting the asset. This is often used in the case of physical security of a building, where building security managers use a combination of mechanisms: guards, security cameras, locks and keys, and ID card scanners to protect a building. If any one of these devices fails, the other security controls compensate for it. In the technology world, defense in depth means that we use a combination of information security controls to protect our data. These might include firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, logging, auditing, and other monitoring techniques. The final principle is different from the others in that it's something we want to avoid, and that's security through obscurity. This principle states that the effectiveness of a security mechanism should never depend upon the secrecy of the mechanism itself. The best example of this is encryption. The mathematical encryption algorithms used to protect information should never be kept secret. Rather, they should be disclosed publicly so that mathematicians can analyze them and ensure that they work properly. The security of an encryption algorithm and encrypted information lies in the fact that the encryption keys, the passwords used to protect the information, are kept secure. In this video, you learned about 4 fundamental principles of information security: least privilege, separation of duties, defense in depth, and security through obscurity.